Hello, viewers. Today I'm interviewing Mr. Bach, and let's get on to it immediately. So, what experience should each person experience, or what experiences?
Well, one of the things that I think can be very, very helpful, particularly for people that are in a transformative period in their life, like, someone your age
Yeah.
or 18, 19, 20 year old is the experience of being completely away from family
Oh yeah.
and maybe being completely away from the friends that they grew up with in a way that really allows them the opportunity to reinvent themselves. And for me, that came when I went into the Marine Corps. And I would add to that something that I suppose is timeless in its experiential potential is to strip away from yourself material goods,
Yeah.
and to basically just break yourself and your load of possessions down to the bare minimum,
Yeah.
and to give yourself a chance to recalibrate, to rebuild, but to rebuild without the baggage of the past, anything excessive. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does certainly. I mean, I kind of did that just because when I was younger, I wasn't so outspoken as the other person, more shy, and so I would ask for things, and I would just make do with what I had naturally.
Right.
And that, since I live in a divorced household, I kind of did leave family from one to the other, so I could kind of reinvent myself at each house and at school. So lots of kind of, I guess, performative play going on there. It's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense. When that happened, did you switch schools as well?
No, I had when I was two. So basically, I've always lived in separate houses. Like in my mind, when I'm at one house or we're doing one activity, there is no other reality besides here. I can think about it, but doesn't actually pass into my mind. So, and surprisingly, I'm very focused on the present, and I have a very good recollection of the past. There's a kind of a short wall of here's what's going on now, and here's what's going to happen in the future. And if it's not in the future, it's not really there unless I pay attention to it. It's pretty interesting.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, that sounds pretty inspirational. Excellent.
I think your previous version of yourself or previous versions had less, I guess, baggage to carry, less items they only need, as you're saying.
Right. And to really open yourself up to the possibility of a complete reevaluation. And that complete reevaluation could be getting rid of, the majority of your clothing,
Yep.
your furniture, y- y- your education to some
Yep.
extent. One of the things so if I can be really honest, let me kind of use myself as a case study. So when I went into the Marines, I was 17. And in high school, I was an okayish high school student, but I like to party and stuff like that, and didn't necessarily take things too seriously. I was kind of a jokester. When I went into the Marines, it was very, very hard for me, and I was for a time clinging on to who I was in high school, and rejecting and kind of half accepting my reality as somebody who is expected to be a disciplined warrior.
Yeah.
And it didn't work very well. It never does to have one foot in and out of the door. And by the chance of really being forced, and then accepting the fact that I could not resist what was being forced upon me, I just decided, no, I'm going to just forget about all of that, and I'm going to completely succumb, if you will,
Yeah.
to the pressures and to the full acceptance of becoming something new. And it was very, very productive, very, very productive for me, and it helped me to accept and to excel. And then when the dust settled in 4 or 5 years, then I was able to look at those things in the past that I might want to reintegrate into my life. When I was a college student, what things do I want to readapt into my life? How might I relax a little bit more, and so on and so forth. But it was a conscientious decision that allowed me to kind of a la carte, different behaviors and mannerisms that were all based in a sense of an initial stripping away. You know, you think about a deep cleaning of your home, or you know, your for instance, your what's the word they call for not to refurbish, but like to like
decorate.
Well, like I'm thinking about like what they do with a car, like a vehicle. What would you to restore?
Yeah, restore. Yeah,
right? You want to strip it down, right? You strip all the paint down, strip all the primer down, grind it down to the bare metal, right?
Indeed.
So I feel like that could be beneficial for people. I know it was beneficial for me. So
I think it's a very good thing. I know that myself am wanting basically some experience like that to be said, here is what needs to be accomplished, and here is the path you're going to take, and you will for a time submit to this higher authority.
Right.
And you recognize it as a higher authority, but from it you will develop as a person, and then yourself can become that higher authority to yourself.
Right.
And be more. It's kind of like memorization to me.
Right.
So somebody said for learning the skills and doing kind of a less, well, memorize all these dates and these quotations and these poems, but that very hard and blunt instrument of memorization, which is lost from the school. I kind of done it for fun for myself, and it makes you do something difficult and molds you to it, and from it you build yourself, and then you can do it and you can become more.
Right. I think that's great. You know, hearing you talk about that and just knowing you on a somewhat of a basic level, there's a confidence that comes in that certification to rebuild or even to strip away to begin with, where then you're not beholden to the judgment of others. Indeed. You know, I mean, I think about one of the things that I think is relatively pathetic, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word, that it's just kind of a sad thing, is when you see people that are obviously hyper fixated on an image or what others think about them. And that must be a very uncomfortable world to live in, because the target kind of always changes as to, you know, what's cool, what's not cool, and how do I fit within that. And the one difference that I think about myself that's so clear is in high school, I definitely thought about how other people felt about me, and the way that I dressed, and the way that I acted, the things that I said. You know, what in my case, what girl I would ask out, and which one I wouldn't, based on who I thought would, you know, be accepted within the good group that I hung around in. By the time I went into college, I was totally unconcerned with the opinion of others. I mean, I obviously wanted my professors to think of me as a professional, but other than that, I didn't, you know, I wasn't fixated on how I was dressed. I'm still not at all. I mean, the shirt that I'm wearing is from Goodwill. I have like 3 of them. I wear the same thing practically every day. And you know, I know that people don't care, and I don't care if they do.
Exactly.
So there's a freedom in that. There's an incredible freedom in that. But it comes with, for me, it came with first a stripping away and a rebuilding. So, you know, that's something that, as the question asks, you know, what's something everybody should experience? And I feel like that would be a recommendation.
Yeah, well, I think it was so you mentioned various changes. So was there one central change in your character or who you were that led to those various changes, to you not caring so much about what others thought and more being, I guess, independent and caring about your own, I guess, view of yourself or your own image?
I'm trying to think about that, and you know, yes, I think I had to lose my self-centeredness and a sense of immaturity, that of a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
And understand that that there was more to my image and who I was than that. It was kind of a service mindset. so for me, it was very much psychological and internal, as I had suggested, and I'm very honest with it. It was forced upon me. It was something that I actively tried to escape. And then something clicked within me at some point, maybe 18 months or 2 years in or something, that there was just no escaping it. I mean, and there were people that, actively that were in charge of me that told me, you are not going to be able to escape this. and ultimately I kind of, through a full acceptance, realized that. So it was that I stopped thinking about, how is this going to serve me? How am I going to be able to get out of this? How am I going to make this difficult situation easier on myself? And I just started thinking, how can I accomplish this with the greatest fidelity possible and embrace it fully?
Yeah.
And that impacted me greatly as a Marine. It became a total part of my character, and then it led me to being a really fantastic college student, in ways that I never would have dreamt possible. I mean, when I was a 16 or 17-year-old and I had a 3.0 GPA or whatever, I never would have thought that, yes, I would be a 4.0 college student or whatever the case is. So, so I think it was just that turning off of that self-ego and that propensity to constantly look for a way that's a little easier, and to just take things just totally head on.
Yeah, it reminds me of Solomon when he was asked the Lord for wisdom, and he also got rich his wealth and his enemies fell. Like you kind of, as you said, I didn't want anymore after like 18 months or so to make it easier on myself or to be less in pain of some sort. You wanted to do the task with kind of perfect fidelity, as you said. And so you aimed for one thing and got the rest. Like it kind of reminds me, if you don't aim to be happy, you aim for some other sad goals, and as a consequence, you gain happiness.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I can certainly tell you that if you're aiming for happiness is probably a futile pursuit, right?
I guess that.
There's a lot of different ways that people try to do that, but yeah, so that, yes, the picking up along the ways all of the virtuous aspects of a given thing based on a goal seems to be very plausible. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't want to become obsessive, though, either, because I feel like it has to be somewhat organic. It's a different story. I'm not so sure I can give good advice on that, because I probably I have a tendency towards the more obsessive side of things, and that maybe is the pitfall.
That's true.
Of the things that I'm talking about, but nonetheless, that's something I'm working on.
Well, if you have those around you to moderate.
Right.
Yeah, those around you, I kind of have an idea, which is that if you have those around you to moderate yourself, you can be more free in the sense that you can kind of pass off that self-consciousness to those around you.
Right.
It's an interesting little thing.
Yeah, right.
Now, you mentioned you changed over the course of your life. You had a high school, more party, popular person, right?
Yeah, I would say. Mm-hmm.
And you had a more, conformist building up in your Marine time.
Right.
And then your college time was kind of taking that aspect and building yourself as a true person. Might be a fair characterization. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, in college, my primary goal was just to do well in college, and I maintained some friendships that I had from the Marines and in high school, but I became much more selective in the friends that I kept, and if I felt like if people were on a path that wasn't necessarily complementary to mine, then I wasn't seeking active friendship with them, or at least not engaging in a way where we'd be spending time together. But yeah, college was great for me. I enjoyed it. I really immersed myself in my studies. It was significantly easier than being a Marine. I found that being an excellent college student actually, if I'm being really, really honest, was kind of like being on a vacation. even studying, late nights and reading and writing papers was, to me, that was very relaxing. when I compared it to being a presidential guard.
Yeah,
where I was working, 12 to 18 hours a day, maintaining my uniform, sometimes in between shifts. One mistake and you were gone off the team. I mean, just simply one error and that was it. I mean, you'd be out processed within 24 hours. So, so there was that. And, right. So I graduated and then I applied, really a combination of what I had learned to embrace in the Marines and as an academic in my teaching profession. And I was significantly more intense as a young teacher than I am now. And more importantly, I expected my students to be significantly more intense.
Yeah.
So my AP students, I used to have those students read like sometimes a novel a week. And I would have them write papers and I would be just absolutely disgusted if they couldn't keep up with that. And it, in fact, wasn't until I moved to Washington 8 years ago that I learned to work with people in a way that allowed them to be successful and to share their talents and their experiences and actually to have even higher levels of success academically, but to also value the fact that they did not need to be run like machines. And so that was yet another kind of point of growth that's come in my late 30s and early 40s actually. So it's a relatively recent thing. I've learned a lot about just what my expectations can be for people, because quite frankly, people here will not work that way. They just won't. And in the Midwest, there's a fabric within the culture in the areas that I'm in where you can, for lack of a better explanation, get that type of work out of people.
Yeah, it's kind of like the different cultural aspects, I guess.
Right, and you read a lot about that. You read a lot about the difference between the East and the West Coast. And, on the West Coast in general, it seems that people have proven that they can be successful and productive and lucrative in their earnings and professions and not feel the need to just be driven, to just be absolutely driven the way that they are on the East Coast, which is where I lived for, the early part of my adult life, and then in the Midwest, which is kind of a more moderate combination of the two places. So, yeah.
Honestly, I thought I was doing it in high school that every teacher would kind of be like you were in the East. It would be very much, here's the work that needs to be done, do the work, come in, and then that'll be it. I would be much more strict. I was surprised how relaxed it all was. But I think you miss anything from those previous versions of yourself.
I actually miss things about the high school version of myself. It's funny. I was talking to my mom. I don't know. It was like a year ago or something, and my wife and I, Claire, were together, and my mom was talking to a group of people in my presence, and she was saying, Bob used to be so relaxed. Like, he used to be so happy-go-lucky, and then he went into the Marines, and now he never has been. So I do miss that. I miss what it must feel like to go a day or a week literally without care. And to just say, oh, that didn't go my way. That's fine. And now if something doesn't go my way, I'm not devastated by it, but I'm like, that didn't go my way. How can I manage the next situation so that it does? So I'll literally get on my computer and type notes. Like at what point could I have managed this better?
That's interesting.
So I actually, I don't know what it'll take. I'm not in therapy or anything like that, but I don't know what it'll take. But I would like to be I would like to find myself in a place where I'm more flexible and just care less. I guess I'd like to be better at not caring.
How is your sense of humor?
I think it's pretty decent actually, and to be honest with you, I do feel like with my students, with my classroom students, I feel like their flexibility is somewhat inspirational to me. For instance, I've expected my AP students this year to be more flexible with me than ever in the past, because the role that I have as Dean of Students is a very demanding role.
Yeah. And
sometimes it means that my planning and my follow through with things that I have going on in AP are not perfect. And so I've asked my students to be flexible, not hyper flexible, but just flexible in a small way sometimes. And they have been fantastic. I've never heard any, or you said, or whatever. And that has been inspirational to me to be more flexible with them. You know, I have students that are involved in various things that keep them out of school. Many of those things I think are legitimate things. And again, in the past, I would have been totally intolerant of that. I would have thought, you know, if you're not here every single day, completely committed, then that's egregious, and there's something wrong with you. So their flexibility has allowed me to see a sense of that in myself, and to kind of deliver in that way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
very long answer to a simple question, but
no, I was listening to a few lectures on Kierkegaardian irony, kind of Socratic irony, and he gave the example of, very famously, a very busy man, a businessman is walking around thinking, XYZ, I need to do this, I'm late, all this stuff is happening, and he goes to cross the road to go do his tasks, and he's hit by a carriage.
Sure.
And basically, as the irony connects the idea of, here's the present, the man is in the frame of what is relevant, what's important, is very narrow. But the world is very large, and the frame of reference is larger. And the carriage breaks that frame, and then the humor is found in the mashing those frames. I think it's kind of important to take a step back and say, what I'm doing is important, but there's something else outside of me as all of life that's greater, and so to take that into account is important, and really accept the fact that it's my own life. I used to be very serious as well. I'm less so now. People think I am, but I just joke in a serious manner. And it's when you can accept that you cannot change things, I think, is when you can really become lighthearted. Like, it's kind of something said, I think, in the Marines, you accept that you can't change things, right?
Right.
And then you kind of go with that direction. So it's important to be able, it's my own self, to say, here's my goals. I'm going to strive constantly for them, whether or not I succeed. But if it doesn't work out, it's not outside my control, kind of a very stoical manner.
Yeah.
Like, I ran for campaign office, as you know.
Right.
That didn't work out.
Okay.
But I'm perfectly fine with it not working out. I can accept the world as it is and move on to something else.
Well, I think that attitude is, you can't lose with that.
Yeah.
Literally. And you might do a better job with it than I do, but I do think that it is something that that's very sound advice. Very, very sound advice. And I feel like there are a lot of students here that, at least on the surface, are doing that. What do you think? I mean, is that
not very common?
Might not do it as well as you.
I haven't met many people who are as carefree as I am. Like, I care deeply about what I do, but I don't. I put it as proper relation to the rest of my life. Like, I care about getting good grades. My father, he kept telling me, I was in middle school, and he said, "Yeah, you should get a B." And I kind of realized that over an extended period of time, that framework, the mistakes of yesterday or today won't be remembered. Because I basically reflect on my own mind, and I say, I don't remember what anything my classmates do were wrong. I remember their mistakes. They won't remember mine. It's too minor in the grander scheme of things.
Right.
And I don't know. People aren't really good at taking themselves out of the situation and just comparing it to the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes me happy.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Where did this come from within you? I mean, you mentioned your dad. Is he somebody that you feel like you draw a lot of inspiration from when you're thinking about how you want to move forward, or what what your philosophies are going to be? Does your dad play into that heavily?
I think he kind of, so when I was younger, and still now, we'd always do yard work during summer. One summer, we moved the stack of wood, because we had a large tree cut down and on the wood. And we moved it 3 or 4 times, and we put it back in the same spot like twice
Why did you do that?
because we moved it to behind the garage. Then we painted the whole house,
Okay.
and then we moved it away, and we moved it back.
It was for painting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's a bit of like, Dad wanted it somewhere else. And so it's kind of the idea that I have to accept this futility. And so that this authority figure who I cannot control is telling me to do it. And I can maintain my independence and say, I disagree, but I'll do it simply because there's no other option. And so being upset isn't going to help. And kind of me being divorced, my parents being divorced as younger, I have to accept that I'm at this house at this time. And if I want to play with my toys at the other house, I have to wait time for that. Made me much more patient because I had to wait like 2 weeks to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's not every day that you hear somebody talk about how a divorce helped them grow as a person.
I think it did. My mother is much more of the, she did very well in school, very well in her career, very conscientious and such. And my father is much more of the, he'll work hard at what he does, but he's not going to be so, I guess, conscientious what other people want. And he's being much more, this is what I view as correct and I will do this.
Yeah.
Like he went to college because he was bored and his friends all went to college. And he was a bit older then, and as he saw his professors as his equal.
Okay.
And then that basically allowed him to, I guess, enjoy the college, enjoy learning when he actually wanted to.
Yeah.
And not so much just do what the system wants.
Right.
So have the kind of balanced person of my mom who follows in the system, my father who's not following the system, but he also does very hard work and more manual labor, as me do that as well.
Sure.
And so as kind of the, I guess, military training almost of saying, you're going to conform to this and you're going to do this. I'm not going to, he doesn't get angry or anything, but he sets the standard. I follow the standards, I meet the standards. And so eventually it was kind of ingrained in me to be as conscientious as he is, as when he wants something done, and to do it as well as he does.
Yeah.
Kind of that. And also not to have as much care for others think.
Right. It's interesting that you bring up manual labor as well. That's another thing that I think everyone should experience.
I agree.
And I feel like there's something innate and necessitated and natural about people engaging in manual labor
Definitely.
as well. In fact, I have this huge landscaping project that we've been saving up for, and we were going to pay contractors to do all of it, and then I just decided that I'm going to do half of it myself.
Makes sense.
And I've started working on it, as a matter of fact, about within the last week, and it's incredible how much satisfaction that's given me.
Yep.
To be dirty and to be sweating at night after school and to be, working on something, and it's just so different from the pursuits of what happens in this office and so needed.
Yeah, everybody's kind of a context to it.
Right.
It makes you grounded, I'd say.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know what, Miles,
It went a bit over.
I should probably get to work on my other stuff. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for it. I always enjoy speaking with you, and speaking with you on the record seems to have a special appeal.
Yeah.
So,
If everyone wants to do it again, I'll be happy to meet you up.
okay, wonderful. Yeah, let's revisit it. Maybe try it again next year.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.